Yuki was the most powerful demon general who treated humans like trash. However, everything changed after he fell in love with a beautiful human priestess and betrayed all of demonkind to start a new life as an adventurer just for a chance to crack her. This story starts on a dark, lonely night outside the demon lord's castle. A party of 4 led by the hero named Yuga has just shown up to save all of humanity by defeating the demon lord. They rush in, expecting to meet a colossal beast, but it's just Yuki, yapping about how they have to beat him first. Mikana immediately shoots a fireball, but Yuki easily neutralizes it, which shocks her. Raven then charges in to attack, but after dodging, Yuga sends her flying with a kick. Seeing this, a priestess named Cecilia replenishes Yuga's powers so he unleashes the true power of Excalibur. However, Yuki easily blocks it again before knocking them all out. Instead of chopping their heads off, he heals them, but while doing so, he takes a close look at Cecilia's glistening drumsticks and realizes that she is the girl of his dreams. Just then, his subordinates call him a creep for staring before asking for permission to unalive the party. After denying the allegations, he tells them to dump them at a nearby human village, and they warn him that the generals might get upset. 1 month later, General Zakil summons Yuoki for a meeting with the demon lord because he has fought the heroes' party 13 times and refuses to unalive them. After Zakil and the other demon general mock him for being a useless weakling, the demon lord asks Yuki why he refuses to unalive the heroes' party. Yuki then says it would be pointless to unalive weaklings like them, so the demon lord decides to have his subordinates do it. Yuki immediately recalls how weak his subordinates are, so he promises to finish the job by himself and returns to his room. While in bed, he reminisces on his fights with the party and notes that the only reason they haven't defeated the demon lord is that he is actually overpowered. He has been holding them back to stop unnecessary bloodshed, but with his subordinates' lives on the line and the fate of demonkind at stake, he decides to end things once and for all. Days later, Yuga returns with the girls and immediately pairs up with Raven to attack Yuki, but he easily blocks the attack and knocks them out without mercy. Mikana then unleashes her fireballs, and one actually catches Yuki by surprise, but he once again blocks it like it's nothing. As Cecilia rushes to heal them, Yuki starts laughing and tells Yuga to stop wasting his time because they will never be strong enough. The next moment, Yuga unleashes his most powerful attack yet, but as expected, Yuki blocks it. Despite this, they refuse to give up and say they have to defeat the demon lord, so Yuki offers to let 3 of them pass if they leave Cecilia behind. Yuki immediately refuses, but Mikana tells him to consider it because it's the life of one measly priestess or all of humanity. Cecilia gets shocked by the easy betrayal, but as Yuga tries to think of another solution, she tells them to leave and promises to keep fighting Yuki. Yuga reluctantly agrees and promises to come back before they run into the castle. Cecilia then tells Yuki that she already knows how powerful he is, but before he can respond, she attacks. He then begs for a timeout and introduces himself, but she gets confused and asks why he is being polite to his victim. Yuki explains that he would have unalived her minutes ago if he wanted, so Cecilia asks for the reason he wanted her left behind. After taking a breath, Yuki admits that he fell in love the first time he saw her and hasn't been able to stop thinking about her ever since. Naturally, she gets shocked but quickly rejects him, so Yuki sits on the ground like a homeless reject and says nothing else matters. Cecilia considers attacking him, but as he barely responds, she gets surprised and asks why he is not fighting back. Yuki then explains how miserable life as a demon warrior is because he is locked in his room during the day and only comes out to fight or raid human villages. When he says he no longer wants to be violent, Cecilia calls him a liar because all demons are evil, so he further explains that he is actually a human who got reincarnated into this world with demon powers. Cecilia remains confused, but as he decides to give up on life itself, she tells him to use his power for good and offers to show him the outside world. The next day, Yuga returns to the kingdom of Clarinus with news of the demon lord's defeat, and the king glazes them as expected before declaring a 3-day celebration in their honor. Around the same time, Yuki has also gotten to the outskirts of the kingdom, so he rips his horn and wings off to blend in. Moments later, while being carried through the city, Mikana tries to use their victory to get close to Yuga, but he ignores her to thank Cecilia because her sacrifice is the only reason they could get to the Demon King. By then, Yuki has just found the guild, so he walks over to the reception and asks for the registration form. An overworked corporate slave named Kramen then gives him the form before telling him to basically sign a waiver for when he gets unalived, like all the other wannabe heroes. After Yuki fills it, he explains how the rankings work and says that it usually takes a month to go from F rank to E, if he is strong enough to handle the basic quests and missions. He also warns Yuki not to lose his guild card because it will be difficult to get a new one now that the entire kingdom is celebrating. By nightfall, Yuki has already made quite a few bucks, so he decides to go even harder until he makes enough bread to be worthy of Cecilia's love. After a week, he returns to the guild to demand more quests, but Kramen flips out and asks why he can't get help from someone else. He then asks Yuki who he really is because no average loser goes from F to D rank in a week. Yuki immediately claims he is just an average guy who tries his best, so Kramen decides to stop the interrogation since he is not doing anything illegal. Right then, Cecilia walks in and tells Kramen to cancel the quest. He recognizes her, but she tells him to keep it on the down low before asking Yuki to follow her home. Much later, two guards see Cecilia's carriage approaching, and one of them gets excited until he sees Yuki stepping out of it. He immediately demands answers while holding a spear to Yuki's head, but thankfully, Cecilia explains that he is a friend. Minutes later, Cecilia serves Yuki some tea before telling him about the rumors circulating of some mysterious adventurer scaling through the ranks. She then tells him to quit the guild, but he gets surprised and asks why. Cecilia then reminds him that defeating the demon lord doesn't stop other demons from attacking humanity. Since the threat of demon kind is still very much alive, every human nation is seeking to improve its military, and they are all aiming for Yuga since he is the hero who defeated the demon king. Apparently, they have been sending baddies and all sorts of jewels to entice him, but Yuki quickly realizes that it's all a broader plan to make Yuga a pawn. Cecilia agrees that the nations are only trying to get an upper hand over each other, and they might eventually start fighting, all while dealing with demons as well. Since Yuki has the potential of becoming an S-rank adventurer, they will likely scout him as well, but the moment his true powers are revealed, he would become the greatest pawn and could quite possibly decide the fate of both demon and humankind. When Yuki reminds Cecilia that he still has bills to pay, she offers to find a way to hire him to work for her instead, but then he tells her to stop and says he will never accept any attempt to scout him since he only wants her. This makes Cecilia laugh, and after being thankful that he is still the dedicated simp that fell for her cakes, she tells him to keep being an adventurer. The next moment, her mom, Celia, shows up to see Yuki, and after she apologizes for how rude the guard was, her maid offers to break every bone in the overgrown dummy body. Celia then tells Sophia to leave and asks Yuki if he knows. While he wonders what she is talking about, Cecilia tries to stop her, but she explains that a bunch of guys, including Yuga, have asked for Cecilia's hand in marriage. Yuki immediately flips out and curses the anime gods for making Yuga hotter than him. However, Cecilia says that she has turned them all down, and Celia suddenly asks Yuki if he is ready to marry her. Yuki considers accepting, but after seeing the sad look on Cecilia's face, he tells Celia that he already asked her out and got rejected. So now, he is working to become a better man before trying again. Celia then says she was just testing him and would never give Cecilia away like a piece of meat. Yuki gets a little disappointed by this, but then she tells him to take care of Cecilia because he has proven himself as one of the good ones. After she leaves, Cecilia takes Yuki outside to talk, and he takes the opportunity to ask if they can be on a first-name basis. He immediately apologizes if it was disrespectful, but then she agrees, which makes him happy. Days later, Yuki ends up in a fierce battle with a creature called the cockatrice. After a couple of minutes of evading attack, he finally skins the lab experiment chicken and packs up for the day. The next moment, he dodges a surprise attack and realizes that his subordinates are the enemies, so he explains who he is to stop them. After they all express shock over him being alive, Duke flips out and demands to know why he suddenly vanished after the demon lord was defeated. Seek then says Duke became miserable since that day, and after begging budget-friendly Peter Pan to stop snitching, Duke once again asks for an explanation. Yuki then explains how he fell in love with Cecilia and got brutally rejected. He further explains his new life as a human and tells them to do whatever they want with their time, but they all refuse and decide to stick with him. Yuki immediately reminds them that he had to lose his horns and wings to fit in with humans, but they assure him that it will be just as easy for them, so he accepts. The next day, Cecilia gets pissed at Yuki for making Happiness cut off her harpy wings. After he spends a couple of minutes begging for her forgiveness, they head to the tea house, where Cecilia asks why they look nothing like the demons she is used to. Duke explains that he is actually a Dullahan, while Seek is a pixie and Happiness is a harpy. When Yuki suddenly asks why he is suddenly such a chatterbox, Duke admits that he always kept silent in the past because he hated Yuki's guts. Back then, Yuki absolutely refused to attack humans or indulge in the usual demon activity, despite the number of times Zekil would make a fuss about it. Eventually, everyone accepted that Yuki was just a weird demon, but Duke stormed into his room and refused to accept Yuki's stubbornness. That was until Yuki cracked his spine and made him a loyal subject. As Duke reminisces on the good old days, Yuki realizes that Happiness and Seek are missing, so they start searching the estate. Moments later, they find Celia rubbing Seek's head as he sleeps, and after she yaps about her love for the little ones, they ask if she saw a girl running around. Celia then says Sophia already took her inside, so they race into the mansion and find Sophia giving Happiness a crash course on how to be a maid. After Yuki asks Happiness why she is dressed like a maid, Sophia realizes her mistake and tells Happiness to go change, but she refuses and asks to work in the mansion. While they are all shocked to hear this, Sophia gets excited and offers to show her the servants' quarters. Afterwards, Seeks calls Happiness lucky since she gets to move into the mansion. While they keep talking about it, Celia tells Yuki that Cecilia will have tomorrow off, and since she rarely gets space to breathe, she wants him to show her a good time. The next day, Yuki shows up to the meetup spot and tries to act nonchalant, but the moment Cecilia shows up looking like she does in his wet dreams, his brain implodes. He manages to keep it cool and asks why she is wearing glasses, so Cecilia explains her genius plan to copy Superman's disguise. With that out of the way, they start by checking out Cecilia's favorite bakery, and after she suggests coming back later, they go flower shopping. At one point, Cecilia stops to pet a cat and calls it cute, but the only cute thing Yuki can think of is her face. Several minutes later, they get to an accessory store, but then Yuga spots them and tries calling out to Cecilia. Mikana immediately stops him because the locals would go crazy if they recognized her. After they walk over, Yuga asks Cecilia to hang out, but she declines and says she is already with Yuki. Yuga then takes a close look and asks if they know each other, but Yuki immediately denies it. After Yuga insists and drags Cecilia inside, Yuki hears Mikana complaining about her date being ruined. She then wishes him luck with Cecilia, and this makes Yuki think she is a good person until she says Cecilia might never say yes to an ugly peasant like him. After recalling that Yuga has already tried to marry Cecilia, Yuki heads inside to win her over with his demon Riz, but Yuga intercepts him every time and tries to show off his wealth. Yuga then tries to win with a nice necklace, but Yuga splurges on a super expensive jewel and tries to put it on for Cecilia. Unfortunately, he pulls off her disguise, and they all get swarmed by fans in seconds. After Yuki gets yeeted to the corner like a worthless side character, he starts chasing the crowd to find Cecilia, but then he finds other locals surrounding her teammate, Raven. Yuki quickly acts like he just saw the hero to distract everyone, and after taking Raven to a quiet alley, he shares some tips for the next time he gets stranded and turns to leave. Just then, a soft voice tells him to stop, so Yuki turns and realizes that zero testosterone voice he just heard belongs to Raven. He quickly realizes that this is why Raven stayed silent earlier, and after admitting that he feels insecure, Raven asks why he didn't laugh. Yuki then says it's nothing to be ashamed about, but as he turns to leave again, Raven stops him and asks if they can become friends. Yuki gets shocked by the sudden requests, but he ultimately accepts, right before recalling that he has to find Cecilia. He immediately runs back into town, and while he worries that Cecilia got tired of the failed date and left, she is also searching for him and thinking the exact same thing. Just then, she spots a boy crying over a bruised knee, so she heals him, but he continues bawling his eye out and begs for his mom. As she tries to cheer him up, Yuki pulls up and unleashes that inner clown he always tries to keep hidden. Cecilia cracks a quick smile before getting serious and yelling at him for playing with the little boy's trauma. Luckily, this actually cheers the boy up, so Yuki carries him on his shoulders so they can search for his mom. Along the way, Yuki asks Cecilia if this is all too much stress for her, but she claims it's no big deal, while hiding the fact that she has already caught a cold. Around the same time, Mikana tells Yuga to stop chasing after Cecilia to avoid another scene, but he insists on finding her and runs off while Mikana gets frustrated and heads home. The next day, Celia tells Yuki about the cold because Cecilia has been in her room all day. Naturally, he gets worried, but after she tells him that Yuga had been begging to see Cecilia earlier, Yuki gets pissed again. But she tells him not worry since Sophia made sure Yuga was escorted out. She then tells Yuki to go see Cecilia since he looked out for her yesterday. After Sophia escorts him to the room, he sits beside Cecilia and apologizes for ruining her one day off. She initially tells him not to blame himself, but he continues apologizing, so she tells him to make it up to her with a second date when she gets another day off. Yuki's brain cells fry from ecstasy as he immediately switches to Riz Lord mode and promises to give her the best day off. As she starts laughing, Sophia gets fed up and drags Yuki out of the room for interrupting Cecilia's rest before casually tossing him out of the mansion like a ragdoll. On his way out, Yuki runs into Raven, who then asks for advice on how to confess to his crush, given how insecure he is about his voice. After he explains that she is the only other person who doesn't laugh at it, Yuki reminds Raven that he's literally every girl's dream guy, and since he has finally found someone who likes his peacock voice, he has nothing to worry about. This gives Raven a confidence boost, so he thanks Yuki and decides to go for it. Yuki then realizes that Raven is heading inside the estate and fears that he just gave the best pep talk of the century to another smoking hot rival. While Raven heads inside to pursue his heart, Yuki freaks out at the thought of Cecilia falling for him. He reminds himself that Cecilia has said no to everyone until now, but after recalling that they were in the same party, his anxiety increases. The next moment, Raven walks out looking like a defeated warrior and says something about failing before heading out. Curious, Yuki tries to ask Cecilia what happened, but Sophia tells him to come back tomorrow because she is still resting. He then asks if she saw Raven come in, but Sophia explains that he actually came to see Happiness. Yuki then finds her sweeping a part of the estate and asks what happened between her and Raven. For some reason, Happiness suddenly gets emotional and runs off, so Yuki decides to try later before heading back home to tell Duke and Seek about it. After recalling all the times they had to drag Raven out of demon territory, Duke asks Yuki why he would let a human get close to Happiness. He insists that she probably hates humans because they usually capture her kind to steal their feathers. Turns out he had decided to join the demon army after saving Happiness from hunters. Despite this, Seek says she doesn't hate all humans because she was excited to start working in Cecilia's estate. Yuki agrees and says she definitely knows that Raven is a good guy. The next day, Yuki shows up at the guild, but instead of Kramen, he sees a regular receptionist who then reveals that Kramen is actually the vice guildmaster. After getting shocked, Yuki asks why he didn't show up, so the receptionist tells Yuki to check the hospital discreetly. Several minutes later, Yuki finds Kramen wrapped up like a mummy and asks what happened. After admitting that his wife rearranged his guts like Prime Mike Tyson, Kramen explains how he spent an entire day looking for the best anniversary gift for her. By the time he finally got back, it was way past dinner time, so she attacked him, thinking he had forgotten about it. Surprised, Yuki asks if he is a useless weakling or if his wife is just some freak of nature. Kramen then explains that she is actually an A-rank adventurer like him, which is how they met and fell in love in the first place. Feeling bad, Yuki offers to heal his wounds, but Kramen stops him and says this is his one chance to enjoy getting nursed back to health by his wife. Just then, Sophia shows up to check on Kramen, and while Yuki struggles to believe that she is his wife, she fractures Kramen's skull for shining his pearly whites. Moments later, Sophia thanks Yuki for checking on Kramen and says Cecilia has been feeling a lot better, but when he asks to see her, Sophia says she is already out running errands. Yuki then asks if gifts are really that important to girls, but Sophia suddenly turns dark and asks if Kramen said something, so he claims he was thinking about Cecilia and runs off. Minutes later, Yuki fantasizes about being married to Cecilia, but he quickly snaps out of La La Land since he needs to find Raven. After eventually finding his room in the night storm, he mentions Happiness' name to revive the heartbroken simp, who then asks how he knows her. Yuki says he has known her for ages and asks Raven how he fell in love with her, so Raven narrates the day he saw 3 worthless thugs troubling her in a dark alley. He quickly swooped in and scared the thugs away, but after she thanked him, he responded and immediately regretted it because she had just heard his princess voice. When she suddenly called his voice beautiful and claimed she envied him, his heart glitched, but she ran off before he could say anything. Since he recognized her apron, he knew she would be working at Cecilia's mansion. Raven is also surprised that Yuki knows Cecilia, so he explains how he started a whole new life just to simp for her every day. Raven immediately starts singing his praises and wishes he could be so bold about his feelings for Happiness, but Yuki tells him not to worry because she just has some unresolved trauma. Raven still feels down about everything, so Yuki takes him into town to shop for gifts. After getting something for Cecilia, he convinces Raven to get something nice for Happiness as well. However, as soon as they finish, Mikana shows up and asks what they are doing at a jewelry store. Yuki easily admits that they are shopping for love, but Mikana already knows that he has it bad for Cecilia, so she asks Raven who his special girl is. When he refuses to speak, she admits that she shouldn't have laughed when she first heard his voice. After sensing that they might get exposed, Mikana suggests going somewhere private, so they head to a restaurant, but the guys immediately stuff their faces to avoid having a conversation. Mikana catches on and claims she had intel about Cecilia, so Yuki folds and begs her to spill. She starts by asking about his progress with Cecilia, and after he explains the current situation, she tells him to stop thinking Yuga is a threat because Cecilia apparently hates his guts. Turns out he always found a way to conveniently enter the bath whenever they were using it, and their trips always took forever because the shameless playboy couldn't say no to the ladies. This makes Yuki feel a little better, so Mikana asks about Raven's girl, but Yuki immediately defends him. Mikana then admits that she is just curious to talk about love stuff, but this makes Raven realize that something else is up. After he assures her that Yuki can be trusted, she makes Yuki promise to keep his mouth shut before saying that a certain demon kept defeating them at the Demon Lord's castle. Yuki panics since she is talking about him, but he listens as she explains how they had to lie to the locals living in the village they used as a base. Since Yuga's honor as a hero was at stake, they spent weeks cooking up stories to hide the fact that they were getting manhandled by one dude. Eventually, the village ran out of supplies to feed them and started seeing through the cracks, but that was when Yuki made the offer to trade Cecilia. While Raven and Yuga hesitated, she agreed to sacrifice Cecilia because it was the only way to restore Yuga's honor. Unfortunately, this made him resentful towards her, and they can't seem to get back to the way things were after all this time. When Yuki asks if she has considered telling all this to Cecilia, Mikana says it would be pointless since she probably hates her guts as well. Yuki then tells her to think about it because it can't be worse than how she currently feels. For once, Mikana agrees with him and admits that he is not totally useless before leaving. This also gives Raven some confidence, so he decides to talk to Happiness again. However, when they get to Cecilia's estate, Duke refuses to let Raven talk to her and says he can't be trusted. Yuki tries to defend him, but Raven steps up and admits that he doesn't even know what to say to Happiness. Just then, they spot Seek talking to Happiness, and Duke suddenly shoves Raven towards her before saying his hostility was just a test. As they watch, Duke gives Happiness the gift he bought and asks if they can be friends. After taking a moment to think, she says yes, making him the happiest simp on the planet. Over a week later, Yuki wonders when he can see Cecilia again because she has been way too occupied to spend time with him. Like that isn't enough, Seek won't let him rest because Duke got recruited by Raven to join the Knights. After Seek suddenly pounces on Yuki's glizzy, Happiness shows up to tell him that Cecilia will be at home today. After getting excited to finally give Cecilia the necklace he bought, Yuki heads into town to buy other things. Along the way, an underfed witch stops him and says he will have horrible luck today, but Yuki ignores this. Moments later, he reaches the usual bakery and gets shocked to see an obnoxious steroid addict instead of the hottie who usually sells stuff to him. After leg day, Skipper shoves a box of cakes into Yuki's tiny chest. He heads out and tries to move past the trauma, only to bump into an even bigger gym bro with roid rage. Yuki manages to avoid a brutal beatdown and also dodges a random turd on the road before a little boy bumps into him. Yuki saves the boy, but after seeing his kebab on the floor, the boy starts bawling his eyes out. Yuki then buys him 2 more and thinks his bad luck streak is over, but a thief suddenly grabs his money pouch. Yuki easily uses enhancement magic to catch him, but then Yuga shows up and thinks Yuki is a thief. He immediately starts attacking and refuses to hear a word from Yuki. Eventually, Yuki tries to make a run for it, but a wall of knights stops him. Minutes later, he ends up in jail, and regrets his decision to leave home until Duke shows up. He tells Yuki not to worry because Raven is talking to Yuga about what happened. Yuki then asks Duke why he doesn't call Raven captain, so Duke says Yuki is his only captain before agreeing to call Raven captain in public. Just then, an elf knight named Irene shows up to tell Duka that Yuki's name has been cleared, so he is free to go. However, Yuga has asked to speak with him. Several minutes later, Yuki shows up at a restaurant and is surprised by the feast Yuga ordered to apologize. After Yuki stuffs his face, Yuga apologizes for everything and explains how Raven verbally assaulted him for what happened. Yuga also recalls seeing Yuki with Cecilia the other day and suddenly asks for tips on how to get close to her. Yuki quickly realizes what he is trying to do and claims he doesn't know Cecilia that well. However, Raven tells Yuga not to even bother asking him, so Yuki suggests asking Mikana instead. Yuga says he can't because Mikana hates Cecilia, but this strikes a chord, so Yuki asks if Mikana has ever said that. Yuga then tells him what happened during their quest to defeat the Demon Lord, but Yuki insists that he is to blame since he is the hero. Yuga refuses to accept the blame and says Yuki doesn't understand, but then Raven grabs his shoulder to stop him from yapping. Yuki then explains that it was his final decision to leave Cecilia behind, which makes him even more responsible than Mikana, since she just suggested the idea in the heat of the moment. Yuki further states that the pathetic avoidance makes Yuga look bad, but when he starts bawling his eyes out, Yuki apologizes for going too far. Moments later, Yuga accepts his mistake and explains how supportive Mikana has been to him even before he became a hero. He then decides to go apologize to her, and Yuki supports this until Yuga asks them both to come with him. Much later, they get to Mikana's place, but Yuki and Raven refuse to go in with him, so Yuga barges in just as Mikana tries to get changed. Despite her screams, he proceeds with the apology and begs her to continue scolding him like she usually does. Pissed, Mikana agrees to grant his wish, but she goes a step further by frying his worthless brain while Yuki sneaks off. Moments later, he starts running to Cecilia's place, and when the witch stops him again, he tells her to can it. The next moment, he runs into the bakery chick, who then apologizes for her meathead brother and gives him a bag of fresh cakes. Yuki thanks her and runs off again, but a squad of Disney men in black suddenly surrounds him. Turns out the little boy from earlier is a trust fund brat who told his folks about Yuki's kindness. Now they want to reward him with fresh kebabs instead of some life-changing coins. After thanking them, Yuki finally makes it to Cecilia's estate and gives her everything he bought, so she offers to make tea. He gets surprised since her maids usually make it, so she explains how she spent the last few days learning how to cook. This makes him fall even harder, but after they eat, Yuga suddenly barges in and tries to apologize for being so obnoxious with her. After Mikana shatters his face with a brutal uppercut, Cecilia asks why they are all here. Mikana then apologizes for ditching her back then, but Cecilia says it doesn't matter because they did what they had to. Mikana then recalls how brutal the fight against the Demon Lord was. As soon as Yuga cut him down, she ran back and prayed that Cecilia was still alive. Thankfully, Cecilia was fine and quickly healed Mikana because she had lost all her energy during the fight. Cecilia then says she has never felt bad about what happened because Mikana ran straight back to check on her, which proved that she never had evil intentions towards her. After Cecilia also accepts Yuga and Raven's apologies, Yuki follows her outside for a walk. Along the way, she thanks him for getting close to her family and friends and helping with their relationships. Yuki brushes it off like it was nothing and finally gives her the necklace. Cecilia immediately recognizes it from the day they went out and gladly accepts it, which makes Yuki ecstatic. Days later, Seek is in a carriage with Yuki, tweaking off ecstasy because he has never been in one. Yuki, on the other hand, is pissed because he wanted to be alone with Cecilia, who then thanks them both for offering to help her on this mission. Just then, Cecilia sneezes, which worries Yuki, but she says it's just motion sickness. After Seek gives her a special potion to make the sickness go away, they arrive in a small village. Cecilia then explains how the locals were attacked by bandits a couple of days ago. Once inside, Cecilia tells the village head not to worry about Yuki and Seek, as they can both heal as well. After several minutes of healing, the village head tells Yuki how amazing Cecilia is, and after agreeing, Yuki notes that they were all lucky to survive the attack. The village head then explains how some mysterious dude attacked the bandits and saved them. Just then, Yuki notices that Cecilia looks drained, so he tells her to get some rest. Cecilia insists that she is okay, but Yuki knocks her out and asks for a bed. Minutes later, Cecilia wakes up and gets mad at Yuki for knocking her out, but he also gets upset because she doesn't know when to take a break. She admits to overworking herself but also tells him not to do it again. After apologizing, Yuki tells her not to worry about the locals since she already healed everyone. Just then, the village head comes in and tells them about a little girl living on the outskirts of town. Yuki asks if she also got attacked by the bandits, but the village head says she has always been sick, which is why he wants them to check on her. Minutes later, they show up at Teal's place and explain that the village head sent them. After Seek gives her a special potion that makes her feel better, Teal says this must be because of her guardian deity. They all get curious about this deity, so she explains how it protected her from the bandit attack by making her too sleepy to head into town that day. They all think she is also sick in the head until she explains how the deity also used dark lightning to save her from a pack of wolves. Moments later, they all get shocked to see that the deity is a gargoyle. As Teal continues yapping about how amazing it is, Yuki recognizes as one of the gargoyles from the Demon Lord's castle. Just then, the gargoyle attacks, but Yuki quickly evades while Seek drops the beefed-up Ugo with a drop kick. He immediately tries to finish off the gargoyle, but Yuki stops him so they can talk. Minutes later, the gargoyle apologizes for attacking and says he was only worried after Yuki mentioned the Demon Lord's castle. Yuki then says they just wanted to know why a gargoyle is living here in the first place, so he explains how some bandits stole him from a temple and brought him here. After he stopped them from attacking the locals, they all started offering prayers at the temple for him. However, only Teal consistently shows up to take care of the place, which is why he always protects her. After he assures Yuki that he has never tried to interfere with the locals or any humans, Yuki decides to leave things as they are. He then gives Seek a job to do just to get some alone time with Cecilia. While walking, she suddenly trips, so Yuki catches her, but instead of finally kissing her, he gets shy and backs away. After they both notice a smoke cloud from the village, they rush back to protect everyone from another bandit attack. Yuki also notices another smoke cloud from the temple, so he sends Seek to go take care of it. However, after several minutes of packing up the worthless bandits, Yuki realizes that Seek is not back yet. When they finally show up, Seek gets tossed like a bag of chips, so Cecilia rushes to help and asks what happened. Seek then explains how the hero, Miller, suddenly showed up and attacked the gargoyle as it was protecting Teal. Miller then calls her stupid for protecting a gargoyle, but Yuki explains that he means no harm. After Miller cuts off the gargoyle's arm and says he will cut Teal down as well, Cecilia warns that unaliving her will start a war. However, Miller gets excited and says he plans to start a war so can finally enjoy bloodshed. At this, Yuki decides to attack, but Miller absorbs it with his sword. Cecilia then explains that his sword is capable of absorbing any magic thrown at it. As Miller starts bragging about his powers, Yuki decides to use even stronger magic, but he continues absorbing them. Seeing this, the gargoyle warns that Yuki will soon run out of magic. However, Yuki continues attacking until a powerful lightning skill cracks the swords. Miller finally starts to panic, so Yuki unleashes an even stronger attack that shatters the sword. He then knocks the obnoxious criminal out and calls him stupid for underestimating him. However, Miller suddenly shoots a magic arrow at the gargoyle, but Teal jumps in to protect him. Miller then uses the same skill to create a distraction so Yuki won't see him escape. However, after he slips away, Yuki loses it and reveals his true demonic form before taking off to find Miller. Seconds later, Miller spots him and gets excited to fight a demon until Yuki shoves his face into the dirt. Miller still tries to talk back, so Yuki kicks the bozo across half the forest. Before Miller can react, Yuki shatters his insides and takes off, but as he contemplates ending Miller forever, the blood-hungry lunatic asks Yuki if it feels good to take a life. Yuki then recalls how Cecilia reacted to his true form and realizes that he has gone too far, so he dumps Miller into the river. Minutes later, he returns to Teal's place, where Cecilia has been waiting to see him. After telling him that the others are resting, she notices the blood gushing out of his head. Cecilia then heals him and welcomes him back. The next day, Teal asks to follow them back to Minerva because she has to heal the gargoyle, but monsters are not allowed in the city. To help with this, Yuki changes the gargoyle's appearance. Much later, they return home, and Teal starts working in Cecilia's mansion, but Celia refuses to accept the statue because it looks even uglier than Yuki. Days later, Teal shows up at Yuki's place to clean the gargoyle, but it gets worried and says she doesn't have to come every single day. When she asks about Yuki, he reminds her that the king summoned him to the castle. By then, Yuki and Cecilia are already on their knees in front of King Clarinus, who then says he summoned them because of what happened with Miller. Yuki expects this to be some sort of punishment, but Clarinus says he actually wants to reward them for protecting the village and getting rid of Miller. Cecilia immediately says she doesn't want anything, so he asks Yuki instead. Yuki then says the king can't possibly grant what he truly desires. Feeling challenged, Clarinus offers Yuki his own harem and the throne as well, but Yuki rejects both. Clarinus then asks what else he could possibly want, and Yuki proudly says he only wants Cecilia's love, before realizing his mistake. Thankfully, Clarinus finds this funny and admits that he can't grant that wish. Later on, at Cecilia's mansion, Yuki apologizes for being so shameless, but Cecilia doesn't want to hear another word as she never expected him to be so stupid. Celia supports her, saying that Yuki went too far this time, but when she bans him from seeing Cecilia for a month, Cecilia says the punishment might be a little too drastic. Celia then asks if she can't stay that long without him, but Cecilia struggles to admit what she really feels, so Celia decides to reduce the ban to half a month. With that, Happiness drags Yuki out, but along the way, she stops to show him Seek, who has been upset ever since they returned from the village. After Yuki realizes that he must still feel bad about being too weak to stop Miller, Happiness drags him all the way back home. Once there, Yuki decides to name the gargoyle Gar, but Teal completely ignores this to call him the guardian deity. Happiness then decides to take her back home because she still needs to recover. Much later, Yuki starts grumbling about having to stay away from Cecilia, so Gar suggests doing as much work as he can to prove his worth to her. Yuki immediately runs down to the guild and begs Kramen to give him any available jobs so he can become worthy of Cecilia's love. 2 weeks later, Celia sees Cecilia pouring 2 cups of tea and asks if she is that excited to see Yuki, but she denies it. On the other hand, Yuki just got back from another night shift, and when Gar asks why he is still so energetic, Yuki reminds him that he will soon be able to see Cecilia again. Just then, Gar says he needs to show Yuki something and reverts to his original form. Yuki immediately gets worried because he is literally falling apart, so Gar explains that the cut from Miller has been getting worse. He probably has a few days left, and since Teal greatly depends on him, He asks Yuki to take care of her. Yuki gets confused since Teal should already be fine, but Gar explains that she is actually getting worse because she hasn't gotten enough rest to fully recover. Yuki agrees to watch her, but he also promises to heal Gar because they have all grown fond of his company. After leaving, he meets up with Duke, who then says that Gar can easily recover by taking something called magicite. Yuki excitedly runs off to get it, but just as he realizes that he doesn't know where to go, Cecilia shows up to tell him about Teal's condition. Minutes later, they get back to Cecilia's place, where Seek is currently trying to save her. He explains that her condition will continue deteriorating unless they can find twilight grass, a special plant that only grows in places filled with magic. While Seek keeps looking after Teal, Cecilia, and Yuki head to the guild, but unfortunately, they are all out of magicite and twilight grass. Just then, Kramen shows up with a new quest for Yuki, but he immediately refuses until Kramen explains that it's to get rid of a monster ravaging a magicite man. What's more is that twilight grass grows in the mine as well, so Yuki accepts the quest. 2 days later, he thanks Kramen for helping them out with the carriage because they would have spent over a week on foot. Cecilia also thanks Sophia for tagging along, and she says it's her responsibility as head mage to help Teal as well. When they finally get to town, Yuki suggests heading into the mine immediately, but Kramen tells him to leave it for tomorrow because this isn't the regular quest. The monster is a rock eater that mutated after eating way too much magicite, and they have to bring its hide back unharmed. The next morning, Yuki and Cecilia are surprised to see Sophia in a maid outfit, so they ask if she can fight in it. After saying that it was specially crafted for combat, she explains how Kramen loves the way she looks in it. Minutes later, they enter the mine and spot the rock eater munching on magicite. It also sees them and immediately throws a boulder at Cecilia, but Yuki destroys it. As Kramen uses Shikigami to block its attacks, Yuki uses attack magic, but it barely leaves a dent. Kramen then reminds him they have to bring its hide back unharmed, so Yuki uses an earth skill to hold it in place while Cecilia supports him with magic chains. After it easily rips through both their spells, Kramen decides to send Sophia inside its body with his Shikigami. Naturally they get worried that it won't work, but Sophia assures them that it won't be a problem. Yuki then uses an ice spell to hold it down, and after Cecilia uses even stronger chains, Kramen wraps Sophia up with Shikigami and sends her down the monster's throat. As they continue holding it down, it breaks off massive rock flakes, which then transform into mini golems to attack. After they deflect Yuki's magic, he easily knocks them all out. However, the monster uses this opportunity to break free. Just as it tries to attack Cecilia, Sophia literally turns its insides into mush. Kramen then pulls her out and immediately hugs her, but as Yuki and Cecilia try to enjoy the view, Sophia pushes him back and says they need to get the twilight grass. Minutes later, they head out, and Kramen suggests traveling back tomorrow, but Yuki wants to right now, so Cecilia begs him to wait. However, just a few hours later, he tries to sneak out and spots Cecilia, who then gives him the rest of the twilight grass and says she already knew that he would leave. After thanking her, he takes off, but by the time he gets back, Gar seems to have already joined his ancestors. Yuki refuses to accept this and keeps shaking until Gar wakes up. Yuki then shoves the magicite into his mouth and reminds him that Teal's motivation for being alive is his protection. This, paired with the magicite's effect, finally restores Gar's motivation and completely heals him, but he takes off before Yuki can respond. Minutes later, he makes it to Teal's room and learns that Seek managed to save her with the twilight grass. After she notices his arm and gets excited, Gar thanks Seek for saving him and Teal twice in a row, and this makes Seek emotional, while Yuki wonders how he can make it back to Cecilia on time. The next morning in the carriage, Kramen asks why Yuki seems more tired than usual, so Cecilia reminds him that Yuki worked super hard on the quest, which is why she is rewarding him with her soft eyes. Does this get Yuki one step closer to cracking his dream girl? Comment part 5 to find out, and don't forget to leave a like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video.